This is Pre-Calc section 7.1 on circles and parabolas. This video will just cover circles, and most of this is review of college algebra. The standard form of a circle, also called in this book the center radius form, is this: parentheses x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. H and k is your center. Your radius is r. That's why this is also called the center radius form. If your circle is at the origin, it is just x squared plus y squared equals r squared, because if h and k are 0, it's going to simplify to x squared plus y squared equals r squared. So once it's in this form, it is very easy to name these two things. The center, you're going to look inside the parentheses. The value with x is 4, and with y is negative 2. Now remember, when it's in this form, you're going to change the sign. Since that said x minus 4, this becomes positive 4. That said y plus 2, it became negative 2. And your radius is just the square root of this number right here. Square root of 9 is 3. The general form of a circle is x squared plus y squared plus cx plus dy plus e equals 0. We want to convert this into center radius form, and to do that we have to complete the square, and we did this in college algebra. To start with, we need to reorganize this so that the x stuff is together. I write x squared minus 6x plus blank plus the y stuff, y squared plus 10y plus blank, and we move the 25 over to the other side. Then we have to go through the completing the square routine twice. X squared minus 6x, we'll take half of 6, which is 3, square it, and put 9, and add that 9 to the other side. Half of 10 is 5, 5 squared is 25, and add that to the other side. Then the whole reason we wanted to complete the square was so that we could go to the factored form. This factors as x minus 3, because that's a negative. This factors as y plus 5, because that's a plus. Both of those are squared. Do your arithmetic over here and you get 9, and now it is in the center radius form, and you can name your center as 3, comma negative 5, and your radius is the square root of 9, which is 3. The radius of this circle means I need to complete the square. Notice we've got coefficients right here that we didn't have a second ago. So you need to divide everything by 2. If it's a circle and you have coefficients, the coefficients in front of x squared and y squared will be the same number. If they are not the same number, it is not a circle. Be sure you do every number, including over here. So divide everything by 2 gives me x squared plus y squared minus 3x plus 5y equals a half. Then I will reorganize this so that my x stuff is together. X squared minus 3x plus blank plus y squared plus 5y plus blank equals that half that's sitting over there plus blank plus blank. Putting those blanks there just might help remind you you've got to add to both sides. Now this is an odd number in here, but it's not hard to get half of 3. Half of 3 is just 3 halves, or you can use your calculator for all of these steps. So to me, the easy way to get half of 3 is just put 3 over 2. And then square it. When you square a fraction, you square the top and you square the bottom, so we get 9/4, and I need to remember to add 9/4 to this side. Same thing here. To do half of 5, I just stick 5 over 2, put it in parentheses and square it. Square the top gives me 25, square the bottom gives me 4, add that to the other side. And this will factor. Remember, that's the whole reason to do this completing the square, is to get it in factored form so that it is the center radius form. This is x minus. Now you might have a little problem trying to come up with this 9/4, but you really don't have to think about it because it's sitting right there. Half of 3 was the 3 halves, and that's what's going to go right here. The other way to look at it is, what did you square to get 9/4? You squared 3 halves. Over here, y plus, there's my 5 halves. Or think about it, what did I square to get 25/4? I squared 5 halves. This in your calculator, and it actually works out to be 9. Then name your center, which is 3 halves, comma negative 5 halves. Just keep remembering that when you've named the center for this, you've got to change these signs, and your radius works out to be 3. Now the rest of these are asking us to go in the other direction. We're going to have some information and we need to come up with the equation of the circle. So it's got a radius 6, r equals 6, and a center of negative 3, 4. That's my h and k. I know my form for center radius is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So this is just x minus h, which is negative 3. I'll clean that up in a second. Y minus 4 squared equals r squared, which is 6 squared, which is 36. The only thing I need to do is minus a minus gives me a plus. So there is my center radius form based on that information. Another easy one, find the center radius form. We have a radius 3 at the origin. That means the center is 0, 0. And when the center is 0, 0, I don't need to go with the x minus h. We know that'll just be x squared. It'll be y squared equals the radius squared, which is 9, and that's all there is to it. Now, the next couple ones get a little more complicated. They want us to find the center radius form of the circle with center negative 1, 2. That's great, because I know this will be x minus negative 1 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals the radius squared. Before I talk about the radius, minus and minus goes to plus right here. So I'm 90% done. I just have to come up with the radius. Now, if I draw a little picture here, not necessarily required, but it might help you realize what you're doing. A center of negative 1, 2, passing through the point over 2, up 3, 4, 5, 6. The only way the circle passes through that point is if that point happens to be on the circle. I have a real hard time drawing the circle. So what you're looking at here is there's your center. Here's this point 2, 6. And what is this? That is your radius. How are you going to find the length of your radius? You're going to do the distance formula. The distance formula is the square root of the difference between the x's plus the difference between the y's squared. So I can do negative 1 minus 2 for my x's, and 2 minus 6. Does not matter what order you do this in. I could have done 2 minus negative 1. Negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3 squared. 2 minus 4 is negative 4 squared. Negative 3 squared is 9. Negative 4 squared is 16, which gives me 25. But it's the square root of 25, which is 5. So my radius is 5. So what needs to go here in the r squared place is 5 squared, which is 25. A little bit more complicated, find the center radius form of the circle with endpoints of a diameter here and here. This one did not give me the center, but I can easily find the center. If we have a circle, negative 1, 1, 2, 3, and over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, down negative 9, somewhere down in here, and these are the endpoints of the diameter, then the center of the circle has to happen at the midpoint. So use the midpoint formula to find your center. The midpoint is the x's added up, negative 1 plus 5 over 2, comma, the y's added up, 3 plus negative 9 over 2, and simplify. Negative 1 plus 5 is 4, over 2 is 2. 3 plus negative 9 is negative 6 over 2, which is negative 3. So right there, by finding the midpoint of that diameter, I have found the center. I need to find the radius. The radius is the distance from my center out to either one of these points. I could use this one, or I could use this one. It doesn't matter. So I can do the distance formula again. It's going to be the difference between the x's squared, the difference between the y squared. So I will use this and this. I could use this one too. I'm just using the first one because it's the first one. So this will be 2 minus negative 1 squared, negative 3 minus 3 squared, and do your arithmetic. 2 minus negative 1 is 3, squared is 9. Negative 3 minus 3 is negative 6, squared is 36. Add that up, gives me the square root of 45. That is my distance, but it's also my radius. Again, I could have used this point with the center instead, and I would have gotten the same radius. Also, if you just don't like doing this arithmetic by hand, you can type all of this into your calculator as you see it. You'll get 45. Don't type in the square root because the square root of 45 will be a decimal. We don't want a decimal right there. So you could use your calculator on all of that. Now to put all this together, my circle formula will be x minus 2 squared plus y minus negative 3 squared equals my radius, which is radical 45 squared. The square root of 45 squared is 45. Last little thing to clean up, change that to plus.